Hello, BookTube. Welcome back to my 2024 library tour. In this episode, I will be beginning a new bookcase. This bookcase right here, it is a stacked-on bookcase. It's two small bookcases that I've stacked one on top of the other. So I'm going to begin with this top shelf here. Let's get going. First up is The Last Queen, Elizabeth II's 70-year battle to save the House of Windsor by Clive Irving. I have not gotten around to this book yet, but I suspect it's in part a history of the reign of Queen Elizabeth II with a focus on the ever-present threat to the British monarchy. Next is another book I have not gotten to, Freedom, The Overthrowing of the Slave Empires by James Baldwin. This next book is weird. Papyrus, The Invention of Books in the Ancient World by Irene Vallejo, translated by Charlotte Whittle. By the title and the subtitle, you would think this should go with my ancient history books, particularly since it is about papyrus, my ancient Egypt books. However, this book really isn't about books in the ancient world. It's really more a meditation about reading and writing. And so while there is some history about the book, it is also a very personal exploration on the part of the author. So it's a fairly difficult book. I've always struggled with speaking about it. I was going to review it when it first came out for Open Letters, but it's too weird. I could not do it. Next is Napoleon, A Life by Andrew Roberts. So this is a biography of Napoleon that I have not gotten to yet. Next is a book that I picked up from last year's big Chicago sale. Backpack Ambassadors, How Youth Travel Integrated Europe by Richard Ivan Jobs. Next is a book that I struggled on whether or not I wanted to pick up, and that is Bad Gays, A Homosexual History by Hugh Lemmy and Ben Miller. So this is the book form of the podcast Bad Gays, in which Hugh Lemmy and Ben Miller will in each episode discuss the biography of a queer person in history whom they term a bad gay. In this book, the short biographies that are included are Hadrian, Pietro Aretino, James VI and First, Friedrich the Great, Jack Saul, Roger Casement, Lawrence of Arabia, the Bad Gays of Weimar Berlin, Margaret Mead, J. Edgar Hoover and Roy Cohn, Yukio Mishima, Philip Johnson, Ronnie Cray, and Pim Fortuyn. So I've dipped into this book and it doesn't please me. I'll just say that. It does not please me. Next is The Franco-Prussian War, The German Conquest of France in 1870 to 1871 by Geoffrey Warrow. So this is the first book I ever had on the Franco-Prussian War, and I quite liked it, although it has since been superseded by Bismarck's War, which I discussed during the first part of the history tour of my 2024 library tour. How the Word is Passed, A Reckoning with the History of Slavery Across America by Clint Smith. So this is a history that looks at various locations in the United States and one location in Africa that had major roles or intrinsic roles to play in the slave trade and the and slavery. And the book is incredibly powerful, and I really found it quite moving. Next is Catherine the Great, Portrait of a Woman by Robert K. Massey. Um, everybody loves this book. Everybody who talks about this book loves it, and I'm not entirely sure why. I tried to read it last year for the first People April, and I do not see what the fuss is about. I was not impressed as far as I got. Empires of the Weak: The Real Story of European Expansion and the Creation of the New World Order by J.C. Sharman. So this book argues that, at least initially, European colonization and imperialism were stymied by still vibrant empires elsewhere around the world. So we say in India and China and Japan and Africa and the Middle East, with the sole exception being the Americas. And even there, that sort of immediately there were some sort of that the Europeans weren't immediately in control or in a more dominant position. So the book is fairly academic, very slim. So I'm not entirely sure really if I'm going to keep this in my collection long term or not. Next is a dynasty biography. This is the Romanovs, 1613 to 1918 by Simon Sebag Montefiore. So this is a history or dynasty biography of the Romanovs. Have not gotten to it yet, although I don't remember if I actually read this years ago or not. I don't know. I don't remember. I also don't quite remember whether or not I've read The House of Medici, Its Rise and Fall by Christopher Hibbert. Next is St. Edward's University, A Centennial History by William Dunn, CSC. So this is a history of my alma mater, St. Edward's University in Austin, Texas, which, at least when I went to St. Edward's, incoming freshmen were gifted a copy of this book. Next is Cross and Scepter, The Rise of the Scandinavian Kingdoms from the Vikings to the Reformation by Sverre Bagge. Let's see if it is translated. It is not. Have not gotten around to this book yet. Empires of the Sun, The Struggle for the Mastery of Africa by Lawrence James. I have not gotten to this book yet. Nor have I got to Europe since 1989, A History by Philip Thayer. But let's see if this is in translation. Yes, translated by Charlotte Hughes Kreutzmuller. And I have not gotten to Bloodlands, Europe Between Hitler and Stalin by Timothy Snyder, which I really need to get to. At some point, I've had this book for a few years now, so I really need to get to it. I don't have a book. The last two books on this shelf are Introductions to Chinese History from Bill Knapp from Harvard. First up is China's Cosmopolitan Empire, the Tang Dynasty by Mark Edward Lewis. So this is an introduction to the Tang Dynasty, which ruled China from the 600s to the 900s, or I think it was the 600s to the 900s is when the Tang ruled China. Which is a period of Chinese history that I'm quite interested in and would like to see more histories of, or any histories of, because I haven't seen any histories besides this fairly academic introduction. I also have in the same series, and I'm kind of tempted to just collect the whole series at some point, is The Troubled Empire, China in the Yuan and Ming dynasties by Timothy Brooke. So this is an introduction to China in the Yuan dynasty, which was the short-lived Mongol-dominated dynasty of Kublai Khan and his immediate successor or two. I think the Yuan only lasted 3 emperors at the most before they were overthrown by what would become the Ming, which ruled from the 13 or 1400s through to the early 1600s, if memory serves. So, anyway, would like to see more Chinese dynastic history. But anyway, maybe there will be some more I can find some. Anyway, BookTube, that's it for this shelf. I will be back with the next shelf, probably standing up. I think I'll do the first 3 shelves, which would comprise this one bookcase, standing up, and then the bottom bookcase I will do sitting down. So anyway, BookTube, and until I see you next time, thank you, have a great day, and stay safe.